Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. Thank you for the lovely feedback and encouragement that each one of you have been sharing for the Career Shifts podcast. It's indeed heartwarming to see the response. I'm your host, Gopal, and I'm here today with yet another story. But before we get to that, I wanted to share an interesting reflection. Last Sunday, people around the world celebrated Mother's Day, honoring the incredible women in our lives. Mothers are exemplary in the various roles they play. They are daughters to their parents, mothers to their children, wives to their spouses, colleagues to their co workers, leaders to many who look up to them, and great friends too. They seamlessly juggle these diverse roles, demonstrating unmatched resilience and adaptability. Each one of us plays different roles at various stages of our lives and careers, but there is no doubt that mothers do it the best. Speaking of roles, my guest tonight is someone who has played variety of roles in his life and career as well. Character roles in the entertainment industry to significant roles in the corporate world, he has experienced it all. But what exactly is a role? That's something we will explore together tonight. Join me as we dive into fascinating conversation uncovering the essence of roles and how they shape our lives and careers. Today, we have the privilege of hosting a multifaceted personality who has made a significant impact in both corporate and cinematic worlds. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Raja Krishnamoorthy, also lovingly known as Mr. Kitty. Good evening, sir.
Very good evening, Gopal.
Wonderful.
Is the
Raja
voice
sir
coming?
has been absolutely clear, absolutely clear.
Sure.
Raja sir has been beloved actor in over 80 movies in various languages since his debut in iconic film Nayagan. His diverse and compelling roles have captured our hearts. But there's more to Raja sir than his acting career. He is also an outstanding organizational development consultant and leadership coach. Since 1985, after graduating from the prestigious Jamnalal Bajaj Institute of Management Studies, he's been transformative figure in the corporate world. He's improved organizational cultures, built strong leadership, fostered teamwork, and driven managerial effectiveness. Raja sir has worked with over 150 organizations, helping them create positive work cultures, build strong leaders, improve employee relations, enhance management, and boost performance. As a motivational speaker, another feather in his hat, Raja sir has inspired many audiences across India and around the world, speaking powerfully in English and Tamil about leadership, self awareness, and social responsibility. In 2021, CEO Insights magazine named him one of the top 10 leadership consultants in India, highlighting his significant impact on the industry. Please join me in welcoming this extraordinary person, Mr. Raja Krishnamoorthy.
Thank you
Good
so
evening,
much,
sir.
Gopal.
Vanakkam.
Vanakkam, vanakkam.
Yeah. So, any words that you want to start off with?
Thank you so much for this opportunity, and you've been kind with your words. I like the idea of being in a position to share some of these, if I can say, insights into life and the optimism that I hold about this gift of being human and this possibility for all of us that if only we can hold the duality of what I call as our objective reality of form our kind of structures and systems along with the beautiful subjective reality of being human and sensitive and from the heart and soul, we can together create a great world. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Raja sir, I knew very little about your non-film career, and when we spoke last year, when I was still with IIM Ahmedabad, you shared a lot about the work that you had done over the last several years, and in fact, you started your career more in corporate after your JBIMS stint. Um, And that brings in a very interesting question that I had in my mind. And while I was preparing, I thought I should ask this question, which is, before the glamour of cinema, you had a very successful corporate stint, and you continue to have that, and you play the dual role. Could you share a bit more about what your initial path looked like and what drove you to the corporate world?
You mean what drove me to the film world or to the corporate world?
How you started your journey, and then, of course, we'll
Okay.
come to the film.
Yeah. So, in terms of background, I'm a Bombayite, Mumbaikar, born and brought up there, and
Me
at
too.
Andheri, and we had a South Indian community, Sri Ram Nagar, where I was born. And interestingly, right through my educational, kind of phase, school, college, Gopal, it has been always multiplicity of things. I can remember some from very early stages of life, uh, you know, being an actor, being good in writing, getting into public speaking by the age of 9, 10, a leader right through school classes and school pupil leader, along with reasonably doing well in academics, may not be the topper in the class kind of thing, but always within the first five kind of thing, and fairly effortlessly. Plus my interest in sports. I was, reasonably good in volleyball and a couple of other things. And along with that, my art, painting, drawing, writing. So the mix of multiple things, I think, is a kind of menu of my life, not not something that suddenly kind of happened. Then, of course, I was also this leader right through schools, school pupil leader. And when I went to college, Danukar College in Parla, I also happened to be the joint secretary of the union in the third year, and then the union general secretary by the fourth year. So all in all, and I had this passion for communism as a young person. So my idea was that maybe I'll land up becoming a union leader in some company and doing a job out there. It's my principal, Mr. Limaye, who told me at the end of my BCom, saying that you're a fit person to go to a management institute, so why don't you try? And that's the first time he planted this thought
Wow.
in my. And I applied for Bajaj. And of course, when the group discussion took place, luckily I had a topic out there which was so powerfully dealt with by Cho Ramaswamy in his Tughlaq magazine. So I had a great advantage of his inputs coming in. That was about the Supreme Court supersession of judges way back in
Wow.
1973 and into Bajaj. And then from Bajaj, again, the way I got placed was also very unique based on an assignment that I had done. The CEO of Mukunda and Steel, Manish Srikanth, who was also the founder of SP Jain Institute of Management, he was
Hmm.
our lecturer, professor in business policy. He
Sure.
offered me as a management trainee in Mukunda and Steel. And I joined Mukunda and Steel, where KK Mehta, my lecturer in visiting lecturer in organizational behavior, was the personal manager. And it gave me phenomenal opportunities right at that early stage to do some very powerful, innovative work. For example, I remember doing my assignment on managerial job evaluation within 1 month
Hmm.
of joining the organization. So the learning
Hmm.
opportunities. Then I had also the baptism by fire in the industrial relations area, because my second boss over there was Dr. Rajadaksha, and my first union leader was Dr. Datta Samant. You can imagine. So it was absolutely, that kind of an induction. So I think this initial orientation kind of started sowing the seeds of what later I think got built up into competencies, if you may call. So I would say that has been the kind of beginning. And then, right when I was there in the second year in Mukund Iron and Steel, ITC Welcome Group, Chola Sheraton Hotel, offered me a position as personal manager. I was going to be 25. I thought personal manager was a big designation, and there was no thinking. So I said, "Come on. I have to give up my Mumbai, which is so deep in my heart, and come to Chennai." But I was very comfortable. I was very comfortable with Tamil. I was proficient in Tamil. I was writing in Tamil. I was public speaking in Tamil. So again, another kind of home. And in
Yeah.
Chennai, and then from Chola, wanting to become a consultant by the age of 30. going to Enfield India and offering consultancy, and then the MD laughing it off and saying, work with me for 2 years and then do your consulting. And so, all in all, after 10 years of working in the organizations, Mukunda Iron and Steel, ITC Welcome Group, then Enfield India as the general manager, in 1985, I became an independent
Yeah.
consultant, trainer, and an inspirational speaker. So that's the
Wow.
journey.
Wonderful. Wonderful. One thing that you said which really resonated, and one thing that I miss, to be honest, I was born and raised in Mumbai as well. Um, and one of the things, a lot of us, when we were born and raised in Mumbai and belong to different states, so I belong to Palakkad Iyer, our native
Next
language is Tamil or Malayalam. Yeah, and we end up learning Marathi, Hindi more than Tamil. And you spoke about learning languages. Uh, how did learning Tamil and writing in Tamil happen to you? Like, did you take that additional effort to do that? Being
No,
in
we were into the typical South Indian schooling system, and
ah
in those schooling systems, your primary education was in your mother tongue. So the option was,
okay,
yeah, so the option was to do it in Malayalam or in Tamil, and Tamil being a natural mother tongue, even if you're a Palgad Iyer. So I took to that. And interestingly, I was passionate about the language, and you can see my Lakshmi teacher right behind in that photograph.
wonderful,
My first
wonderful.
standard, second standard, third standard teacher. She fed me with Tamil, like a mother feeding with milk. She fed me with Tamil. And so I remember when I was 8 in third standard, I did my first role as Desing Raja, in a Tamil kind of thing. I
Ah,
wrote my Tamil essay and got a very good, from her in the third standard. I did my first public speaking when I was 10 years old in the fifth standard. So Tamil became a natural part of me. I remember reading for my grandmother who used to come from Chennai the
hmm,
Lifco books on Ramayana, and they were, every kandam of Ramayana. I would sit down and read it for my grandmother. And those kind of things happen very early in life. I'm talking about the age of 8. And by the time I was
right.
9 or something, 10, I used to read Ananda Vigadan back to back, end to end. I used to read Jayaganthan stories when I was 10 years old. So that was the passion about Tamil as a language.
Wow, wonderful. Something that I envy you about. uh, you mentioned about how you started your career, your journey till 1985, and then the journey into movies happened. Do you want to walk the audience through how that happened, how that came by, um, so that yeah.
Yeah, one thing is that this fact that whatever you may call as a professional pursuit or even studentship, being accompanied by these few other things. One is the track of leadership in life, the track of art and interest in art, right through school, right through colleges. I think that was happening. So when I came to Chennai, I started writing short stories and publishing them in Tamil magazines. And some of them were very, kind of powerful ones. I landed up having good friends like writer Balakumaran, through whom, I kind of had an introduction with Kamal Hassan much before, I entered films. And there was a time when another student from Bajaj Institute, 2 years junior to me, we happened to meet through a common friend, and he was staying very close to the Chola Hotel. He dropped into my office a couple of times, and then he saw that here I was writing poetry in Tamil and thanking an employee, having written short stories, and he opened up and he was working on scripts and he wanted to become a film director, and that was very fascinating. So we started talking about it, and then we started working on story ideas. And we used to work on a couple of one-liners, as we call it, before we work on the main script. We used to
Sure.
meet directors and narrate stories to them, producers and narrate stories to them. People like Bharati Raja, Peter Silva Kumar at that time, a few others. And that happened for some time. But by 1982, I became the regional in charge of Welcome Group HR. Then, of course, the Enfield India thing, bigger responsibility happened. So we kind of drifted away. He went ahead and he made his first film, his second film, his third film, his fourth film. 1985, I decided to become an independent consultant. 85 December, my friend came home and he said, look, one of the scripts that we have worked on, Divya, I'm planning to make that into a film. Now that you're on your own, if you can manage your time, why don't you work along? I said, okay, but I couldn't find the time and I couldn't work, at that point of
Sure.
time. There was a bit of mix up. I regretted that decision, but he was very kind. He tolerated that, and then he again came back end of '86 and said, "Hey, Kitty, this time it's a story about Bombay, characters, culture, language, behavior, environment. Everything is Bombay, and you are from Bombay. You can make a huge difference. So why don't you work with me?" But by that time, I had become clear about how to manage my
Mm.
consulting, independent, kind of life reasonably. So I said, sure, I would. And that's how I decided to jump in. 21st of January, 1987, my first day at a shooting spot, though I had done the discussions, other things earlier. And the film is Nayakan and the friend is Maniratna. Rest is history over time.
History. I think yeah, it was a movie that I don't think anyone, whichever language they speak, would not have watched. I think it was dubbed and remade into Hindi as well. So I'm sure it has had a long-standing impact. And who can forget the famous Kamal Hassan and his, the versatility that he brings into the entire journey. And of course, your role was impactful as well.
I had a
Um,
small role. The film
yes,
had a great impact in terms of three national awards: Best Actor, Best Settings, Tota Tarani Art Direction, and
yes.
Sriram for the camera work. It was an amazing. I mean, it is chosen as one of the best 100 films of the last century by Time Magazine.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. I did not know that, but great to know that. Yeah, I think one point that you mentioned about the 1985 period of how you decided to, you know, um, pursue independent consultancy or consulting as your role. Uh, how did transitioning from structured corporate world into independent consulting happening? And did that thought happen? But was it a natural progression, or was that something which you felt was a need of the hour? What drove that change?
One I would say is this romantic idea of being independent. So I would say I
Sure.
would grant that as a romantic idea. But on the other hand, there was this very deep faith belief, if you want to say that, it's very difficult to fail in life unless you're a terrible duffer. And I think it's a universal thing that I would talk about, saying that it's very difficult to fail in life, until you really mess it up. So that
Mm.
faith was there within me, and the fact that even at that stage, I was already getting invited to be a speaker in so many forums and my programs. Between 1978 and 80, I had also specialized in what is called a sensitivity training and group process work. And there
Yeah.
you could see my at the center of the four or five teachers I have, Dr. Pulin Garg from IM Ahmedabad, my
Yes.
guru in the area of sensitivity training, who blessed me and who gave me such confidence to the extent of publicly saying that in terms of conceptual frameworks and deep thinking, the kind of strength that I have is very, very unique and very special kind of thing. And that was kind of getting deployed, and that was getting kind of into work, and that was getting accepted. So I think that again gave me this feeling about why not, with these skills being there, this human sensitivity being there, this positivity about life being there, this passion to spread goodness being there, how can one really go wrong? I may have faltering, kind of few kind of, little, kind of disappointments and things like that. But the conviction that it's very, very difficult to fail in life was very much there. And of course, I humorously used to say that if nothing else, I'm reasonably good in cooking. I can always run an idli shop and make money in life. I think that was, a bit of timur or arrogance that you can talk. But this conviction that it is possible, I think that was the most fundamental thing. And already a track of acceptance, a good speaker, a good trainer, thinks differently, comes with innovative ideas, that appreciation that was coming in. I think that boosted the confidence. I think that was a package.
Sure, sure. And talking of acting and career in acting, there comes, I mean, though it's very, very, very similar to the world of independent consulting, where, work comes by when it comes by. It requires a lot of pursuit. It requires a lot of conversation. As you mentioned, that you had to speak and share a lot of these one-liner stories to get your, ideas sold in many ways. How much of your pre independent consulting structured management experience help you in that journey, or if at all it did?
Good question. If at all it did, I think that's the important part of the question. As an actor, whatever that I had done earlier in terms of the corporate world, it makes no contribution. It makes no difference. If you're a producer from a business perspective, from that overall management of the enterprise of making a film, I would say it makes a difference.
Mm.
Even to a director, it would make a difference because filmmaking is a very significant, huge project management.
True.
Okay,
True.
and it is led by the team leader, the director. So a fair amount of management skills and things of that kind come in. But being an actor, on the other hand, though I have directed 2 films, being an actor is a completely different ball game, according to me. In terms of eligibility and entitlement, I may put factor number 1, 2, 3, 4. But I think there are also criteria behind that, like naseeb, opportunities, breakthrough, and things like that. But I think if you have passion for that, number two, if you have some skills, exposure, and confidence as a result, and then I would say, and it's a gift of God, a differentiating factor like a voice,
Mm.
a tonal quality, and delivery style, like for example, Raghuvaran would have,
Yeah.
as I'm supposed to be having, as most of the people say. So those things also, these things make a difference to the actor. But I think beyond that, the interpersonal relationship management skills, they're very personal. I think even people who are not MBAs, people who are not even graduates, some of them are extremely good in those interpersonal things. So granted to them, they are very
Sure.
humble, they are very humane, they are very, so those things are there. So overall, I would say management education and management exposure in the corporate world, I don't think it has got significantly anything to contribute being an actor. But in the film making overall, if you say, as an enterprise, a filmmaking producer, and as a team leader for a director, some of those skills can really make a difference. All right, I believe so. And I think some of them are very good at that, like Mani Ratnam. I mean, they're extremely good team leaders. The way they may do project management and the way they kind of do projects within time, within cost. In fact, I would quote one of Mani's beautiful, pet statements. He says, all your creativity before shooting. On shooting, just sheer efficiency. Post shooting, excellent marketing. 3 packages.
Wow. Yeah, fantastic. I think that sums it up in terms of what a world of director looks like and what a world of actor looks like. Of course, acting also today has evolved quite a bit, where actors themselves are not just focusing on acting as a skill, but are businessmen themselves or entrepreneurs themselves, where they are trying to put in. So they will have a investment into a startup at the end of the day, or they may be also doing production as well. So, do you have a point of view on that? Like, has that evolved over the last several years? Has the startup Kida caught them as well, if I can
Yes.
call that?
So again, I'll go into what I call as the actors and the stars, kind of differentiation. Because you've got actors like me, who are not really the stars of that kind, who make, let's say, multi-million or whatever, or crores, and therefore have opportunity of deployment of funds, and therefore wanting to get into business or create production houses, be it
Sure.
actors, be it directors, who are, if I can, phenomenally successful kind of people, and you have to grant it to them. So they become entrepreneurs and they do it, depending upon their maturity, capability, they do it very well. Some of them are remarkably good, kind of, for example, I would say personally that Rajnikant sir, as a person, from a very early stage of being an actor, did some of the wisest kind of investments related to kind of property and stuff of that kind, in a very sensible kind of way. Okay, so he's a
Sure.
very good role model about that combination of success and sensibility, kind of thing. Many
Sure.
of the successful directors like to become producers because in their production houses, making and selling film is a better proposition. So I
Correct.
think that's it. So I think it's also a factor of phenomenal success. So if you're
Sure.
phenomenal success, be it an actor, be it a director, or even as a producer, and then you get into that orbit, from then I think enterprising becomes a very combining natural part that goes along with most of these people. Of course, it has not
Sure.
happened with me. That's a different matter.
No, we'll get into what more I think happened in a bit, but there is a questions from the audience that I would like to take here.
Sure.
Mr. Venkateshan Srinivasan asks you about leadership. You are a great role model, he says, and he's eagerly awaiting your book on leadership.
Hey Venkatesh, thank you so much. I know that's a commitment that I made, more of an intention that I stated some time back. But I agree. I feel bad about this myself. I think I have enough stuff, blessing of God, to write at least 5 books, and I've not even written one. I feel a little guilty and shameful about it, I must confess. But Venkatesh, I'm into that now. For example, in the last 4 months, my postings, my writings have been so very regular. I think I've got into that groove now. Maybe another 6 months time, Venkatesh. At least the draft of the first book should be ready on leadership, of course, on leadership.
And we'll be more than happy to invite you again for a book talk on that topic as well.
Yes.
Um, Wonderful. Moving on to the next section, we spoke a little bit about that already in terms of the skills that are required between in a corporate role versus as an actor. And you mentioned that the world of acting is very different from that of a management institution, more as an actor, but not as a star, right? Um, there are a lot of people in the audience who may be contemplating a significant career change, probably.
Mhm.
And based on your experience and the shifts that you have had in your career, what are the
Uh-huh.
key success factors or key factors rather to successfully manage such transitions? Like, how do you ensure that you have planned for everything and then take the jump?
Yeah, I would call this as a form. I mean, I'm just using in a funny way a formula of 4C plus 1D. Okay, 4Cs and 1D. So first, let me talk about that 1D. If you are a dada in something, that's a great beginning point. There must be that USP about you, and which is not very common, which is not with everyone. And if you have that, I would say 80% of becoming an entrepreneur and on your own, whether you're a consultant, whether you're a manufacturing person, whether you're a service organization, whether you're going to be a restaurateur, doesn't matter. If you're a dada, आपके अंदर वो दादागिरी है, that uniqueness, USP of one particular kind, you are the best sambar making person in the whole world. If that's your conviction, believe me, you can start a food chain. Okay, कुछ तो होगा. So that is the D factor, that dadagiri uniqueness. Otherwise, the four C's, as I would say, first of all, clarity in your mind about life, and that's very important. You must be able to hold the perspective of the long termness along with the jerkiness of the short termness. Not everyone is ready for that. You can't begin an independent career with guarantees and assurance for the next, kind of 2 years and 3 years. In fact,
Right.
my pet statement was when I began, and this I told my father-in-law, who was very concerned about his daughter being in a precarious position with a guy who's a general manager in Enfield, India, at the age of 30, and wants to quit and give up, an independent house by the company, a car with chauffeur from the company, and become a pagal on the road kind of. So I told him, I have clearly economic support for 90 days. The whole world can change after that. So this 90 days of economics is a very huge principle I believe in. Okay, so that is what I'm calling as the clarity as to what is it that risk-taking capability that you think in terms of time frame that's important in life. Are you risk averse for 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years? And can you make your stuff work out during that period? So that's one. Second one is confidence. confidence about what you're choosing to do, and the ability to talk about it in public forums, in private conversations, write about them, live those things. Can you embody the stuff that you are going to be offering? Can you become your own kind of brand representation? The third one I would definitely say is the courage of conviction. And that's where I talked about the fact that I believe that it's so difficult to fail in life unless you are utterly foolish or completely careless or immoral. One of those things. Even immoral people are successful, but that's a different matter. But I'm
Yeah.
saying that courage of conviction, saying that I can combine the dharmic part of life with very deliberate decision to enterprise. Okay. And the courage to meet challenges, dive deeper into them and learn. Most important, I'm saying context of life. I would say never do something which hurts your family. Never do something because you want to prove a point. Never do something with insensitivity to the close people. Convince them, talk to them deeply, make a context which is comfortable for you. I think that's very important. So, to my
Right.
wife and my children are going to the best of the school. For example, when I decided to become an independent consultant, even when I
Right.
decided to do the movies part of it, I would be one of the rarest of the rare associate directors who, on the first day of shooting, comes in a chauffeur driven car of his own and then gets down to running around picking up material for the art department and starts doing things like a 14-year-old kid. Okay, so that contextually being able to manage your transitions of life. I would say the 4C plus 1D is a very important formula of this transition.
I think I don't think anyone could have said it any better. And I think even as a lot of people reflect, one of the reasons why, I mean, it could be any of the 4C that they may be missing, and which probably is one of the reasons why they don't take that plunge. We'll take a slight different question, and I'm waiting for other audiences to drop in their questions. Feel free to share those on LinkedIn or YouTube or wherever you're listening us from. It would be great to hear and share those with Raja sir. Um, One of the things that has been very unique about you is the identity. You have a very strong identity as a consultant and a very strong identity as an actor as well. And you've maintained both really well through the journey of the last 50 years, as we have seen. What advice would you want to give to people who are trying to preserve one's core professional identity while shifting their careers?
My 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 view on that is a little different. um, I would say that if you are wanting to pursue exclusivity and success of a phenomenal nature, I would say focus on one. Let me be
Fine.
very blunt about it. Okay,
Yeah,
let me be blunt about it, because there is nothing that is a substitute for focused deep dive. That is the expertise path. Okay,
correct.
so you need to kind of make that choice. But if you have perspective of life, which is like mine, where you're not that kind of a person who goes to a restaurant, looks at a menu and says, yeah, from the a la carte, this is what I want to have and only this I will have. I'm a buffet lunch kind of person. So I pick up multiple things. And this buffet lunch people are only 5% in life. 95% of people are a la carte menu choosers. And I think that
Hmm.
focus is a very good thing. And to be
Sure.
able to stick to that. Okay. And I would say going deeper, okay, and persistently, uh, until you create the niche spot for yourself, okay, that tireless effort to find that niche place for you, I think that would be the biggest thing about you. um, and as I'm saying this, I'm becoming aware of the fact that I'm talking about today's context, which is it's a context of startups and much more of upstarts. Okay. Uh,
True.
and therefore, I'm saying that I don't know how people in that kind of generation and point of view would look at this. Um, if you have that, kind of push of hurriedly you want to do something, impatiently you want to do something, somehow anyhow you want to do something, you might as well go and rob a bank or do something else. But if you want to be a meaningful, focused, dharmic, principle centered entrepreneur, successful, I would say deep dive. Have the courage to deep dive, give your best. Hats off. I would say, for example, to me, if you ask me as an example, so Maniratnam is a classic example. He began as a financial management consultant for 2 years, but he was very clear. Even at the institute, he did his project management about starting a film company, film production company. That was his project. Okay. I
Wow.
remember starting an automobile battery unit, based on standard batteries. But that's the kind of thing. So it was there in his mind. And then after working for 2 years with a financial consultant, then he took the plunge. Of course, circumstances, all those things, contextually, it was different. The Venus films, they produced the first film. But all those, uh, let me quote it this way. Just about few years back, when I went to meet Mani Ratnam sir in his office, Mani in his office. Why I'm saying Mani Ratnam sir in his office. So, that was the time when I was contesting the assembly election as an independent candidate, thanks to my socio-political interest. Okay. So I asked him, so Mani, how are things? What are you doing? What is his answer? What else? The same thing, writing scripts, trying to convert them into good films, making films, the same thing for 35 years.
Wow.
I mean, humble was his, his kind of response, but I'm saying it had such awesome truth about it.
True.
To be able to focus and persist brings you phenomenal successes of life. Okay, I have a different perspective, which is about the multiplicity of life and the kind of celebration of life. I think that's a different kind of an enjoyment of life. So I think people
Yeah.
must also make this choice.
Sure. Sure. Wonderfully said. I think we are the choices that we make. And as long as we are happy with the choices we are making, I think that's what is most important. So thank you for sharing that as well. Um, I mean, in the last 30, 40 years, rather now, what were some of the challenges that you may have faced, both in the corporate and the film career, through the shifts, the numerous shifts that you have made, that you may want to share with the audience more as your reflection, and probably people can take learnings out of it so that they don't make the same ones.
Yeah, it's a very good question. So let me tell you. I'll tell you the danger and the challenge of straddling on two horses. The first and most fundamental challenge is it becomes convenient and very natural for both the sectors to believe that you are more focused on the other and therefore they
Yeah,
don't have to take you seriously.
yeah,
Now you got to pay a price for that. And I think unless you are number one, extremely blessed, number two, have some distinct USPs that people have experienced and therefore they want to come back to you. And three, you are a person who has the ability to carry the conviction and be able to influence and change opinions, okay, in engagements. I think all these three are very, very important. Otherwise, I think straddling two things, I would say that to me, that was a challenge. It was very easy for the film world to say, awareness, sir, he's got his consulting, அவருடைய அந்த corporate அதெல்லாம் இருக்கு. And some people would therefore kind of at different stages not take you seriously in terms of
true.
considering you or talking to you or engaging with you. Or let me also confess, in the film world, especially in the actors world, and this is a personal opinion, the mindsets are reasonably complex and very different. And when I
Yeah,
say complex, complex and complexities of different kind, which includes comparisons, inferiority, superiority complexes. So how you look, how you talk, how your voice comes through can make people, kind of say yes
yeah,
and no. I can
yeah,
distinctly tell you. It's very strange, and that can happen with the best of actors and best
True
of
that.
stars. Okay, so there is that security, insecurity, complexity that you can create with your presence that can sometimes work in your favor. A lot of times it may not work in your favor, or sometimes it doesn't work in your favor. Let me come to the corporate world. Many people would very conveniently say, because you're a reasonably successful actor, most of his time is now going in films and acting, so you don't have to kind of find out as to whether he's kind of available or interested. So this, what you may call as, you can't have the cake and eat it too. I'm saying that is the truth.
Mm,
You will
mm,
have to accept missing out opportunities as a legitimate consequence of riding two horses, and I'm okay with that.
mm,
I think what stood for me is the fact that quality of what I did, both as an actor
mm.
and as a consultant. So clients and people have stayed with me for 25 years, 30 years, come back. They've gone through four different organizations. But they say that, this work that we did 25 years back, 30 years back, it stands out in our
Yeah.
mind. And they, still they kind of, so I would say, therefore, bank on your depth of your capability, of your unique offering, or your whatever competencies, and let that be the resource from which you're flowering, from which your fragrance is coming. And that's as much valid as an actor. This year, for example, Gopal, I decided in the month of January, on a conscious decision of doing more of less. I want to
Mm.
do less now in the next few
Yes.
years rather than more. So I declined two films, very good offers in Telugu, one in Telugu and one in Tamil. I declined, but that was a conscious call, okay, that I don't want to do that. And I would say that have the clarity of taking these kind of decisions. It
Mm.
can work both ways. For example, suppose I say, look, I'm going to be only doing films for the next 4 years, whatever. Suppose I decide. I mean, I had this idea. Since I was telling myself, I haven't directed any film in the last 35 years. I know I'm very good in story writing, and I know that I have directed 6 plays before the age of 20 as a drama director. Not that it's validated by the normal film industry acceptance, but I know that I could direct a film today. Whether I
Sure.
want to do it, maybe I'll do it at 75, not now. So this, I would say, your personal conviction and clarity, and if I can say, and knowing that you can't have the cake and eat it too. Are you willing to balance out that in life? That gives you a peaceful pathway of life. If you're not into frenzy of proving something to somebody, but willing to enjoy the taste and the juice of the fragrance of life, the flavors of life, I'm saying you have an opportunity.
Wow. Profound. Profound. Um, I think, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, one thing that I'm taking out as taking away from this is don't be in the frenzy to prove something to someone. And of course, you can't eat the cake, have the cake and eat it too. I have a question from Vikas. He's asking, do the two tracks, entertainment and OD coaching or OD work, serve different personal needs for you? I mean, are they serving any different needs for you as a person?
Um, from a need point of view, I mean, for example, when we say needs would become what you call as basic requirements. There could be basic emotional requirements, and these could be basic economic requirements. I'll share the truth that in terms of the economic requirements, you may be surprised to know that even after doing 80 films, corporate world has taken care of 80% of my economic requirements compared to the 20% of the films, both in terms of time, revenue, whatever. There has not been
Mm,
much of a difference in terms of the value creation, in terms of what you may get as a return per hour kind of thing and all that. So honestly, to me, that's a very balanced kind of thing. Okay.
sure.
So I'm going beyond it. And life has always been much above the need factor of life, especially from an economic point of view and acceptance point of view, because so that part of it is there. But if you ask, I mean, if you go beyond needs, okay, then I would say that there are a few other things which make immense kind of sense. and that is the ability to see the commonness in multiplicities of life. For example, I think not just going through this, also my deep interest in self-awareness and Atma Gyan. When I look at all of these things, believe me, the thread of life is single.
Hmm.
Okay, the kind of pearls, the kind of stones that we are, kind of stringing into them, they are different. Being human and going through the journey is absolutely the same. The dimensions of emotions, the dimensions of human sensitivity, the dimensions of roles in life, the dimensions of being an individual entity and part of a collectivity, honestly, they are all the same. Okay. Our canvases and our settings are different. That's all.
Very true. Very true.
Our canvases and settings are different. That's all. That's what I would say.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Raja sir, when we spoke last year, I think we spent quite a lot of time about your views on spirituality and how it has shaped your career, your life in many ways. Do you want to share anything around that, on the importance of spirituality in one's life, career, um, and any takeaways that you want to share?
Beautiful. A very quick kind of question for for me to build into this. So, when were you born, Gopal?
1982.
Good. This is the beauty about life. You answered that way because that's what you're used to. You
Hmm.
could have understood my question in two ways. One was when were you created, and the
Yeah.
second was when were you delivered. Okay. Because the fact
True.
of the matter is, for 10 months, you are alive in the womb of your mother, alive, which means
Alive.
you are born
Yes.
already. And
Yes.
somebody who's little, kind of rationally would say, but even before Raja, you become part of your mother. You exist in some way in your father and in your mother. And so I would say that's true. And
Yeah.
then somebody would say, before you became part of your father or mother, you must have been a food particle, an energy of that kind. Before you became the food, you must have been part of a, vegetable or, kind of a fruit somewhere. Before you became that, you must have been part of the plant. Before you became part of the plant, you must have been part of that five elements together in nature which created. And before you became the elements, you must have been the very causative factor of, the universal consciousness and cosmic energy that must have created you. If you can understand this one reflective going back, then you will understand that spirituality is what we are talking about, is about the fact that all of us, my dear friends, belong to the same lowest common denominator. There's no difference between you and me. I can see myself in you. And the fact that
Beautiful.
you, all of us belong to the universal intelligence, the cosmic intelligence, which spiritually may come in Sanskrit saying Aham Brahmasmi, and to
Hmm.
acknowledge that you're that also Tat Tvamasi.
Hmm.
Gopal, this is extremely simple and it is totally universal. And in some way, in each one's way, if there can be that moment of truth connection to this spiritual origin that I am, then I
Hmm.
have no issues and conflicts with you at all, in spite of the complete differences and differentiate in your world of form, in your world of objective reality. This is the ground basis of my spiritual understanding. Of course, in terms of learning, in terms of hearing, in terms of deciphering, in terms of reflecting, in terms of meditating, it takes various forms and shape. But the fundamental of the complete spiritual understanding that I have, the faith that I have, and the exposition that I continue to do day in and day out. For example, if you see in the last 3 months, most of my postings on LinkedIn, even if you read, they're all on self-awareness and questions out of
True.
self-awareness. I would probably say that if you ask me, Raja, is there a mission, sense of purpose that you want to? I say, yeah, my campaign, my sense of purpose would be what I call as the WOW campaign, WAAOW. We are
Hmm.
all one world campaign.
Wow.
Can we have this universal sense of identifying one in the other, and therefore in a form of universal brotherhood and togetherness? That's my
Hmm.
spirituality. Of course, inputs
Wonderful.
in terms of Vedic, religious, XYZ, they are incidental, but the fundamental is human connect, which is the lowest common denominator.
Wonderful. And I would say, wow. um, a question about self-awareness, and I mean, there is a different question here from one of the participants, but I would try to bring that into a slightly different take, given that we're speaking about self-awareness. So the question is this, right? How challenging or easy was it to work with greatest superstar Rajnikant? Any particular leadership quality you may want to share about working with him? But I will tweak this question to ask you this. You've worked with both Rajnikant, Kamal Hassan, and all the top actors. What self awareness does to them? Like, why are they stars beyond, I think, I mean, is it the hard work, or is it that they are self aware right from early on, and put specific efforts towards that makes them different than others?
You know, we are talking about you know, let's say Rajnikant, we are talking about Kamal Hassan, and then we are trying to see, you know, self-awareness in terms of, you know, some mix, you know, match, and you know what happens to them with self-awareness. Um, you know, talking about self-awareness, uh, Rajnikant, um, Rajni sir by himself, uh, I would say in a broad sense, is a very reflective spiritual person. That's part of
Hmm.
his, you know, being, and to him, therefore, in terms of seeking the deeper answer, getting into, you know, kind of you know, pilgrimages, meeting the, you know, kind of saints and sacred people, and that insight also making him go deeper. Those have been a very natural part of his life.
Sure.
uh, but I think in terms of an answer to that other question that popped up, I think the biggest, you know, kind of a thing, comfort about Rajnikant is his utter simplicity as a human being. So that simplicity just kind of makes it so easy to connect. So from the first time when I did Raja Roja with him, and I have done
Hmm.
5 films with him, the nature of relationship has been consistent, very warm, very much from the heart, very easy to flow, no pretensions, no hang-ups, nothing of that kind. As long as there is time and space, easy access. And I will also confess that we have gone much deeper than that, even on the socio-political lines of thinking, and you
True.
know, so that kind. But that's for another time in terms of
Yeah.
diving deep or talking about. Um,
Yeah.
Kamal, Kamal sir is different completely. I would say I'm not saying diametrically opposite. I'm saying completely different. Uh, he's uh, he's a person who, with sheer focus and unimaginable hard work and wanting to prove, and till date, I would say wanting to prove, has been
Hmm.
and become who he is. I think for Kamal sir, I would say wanting to prove even today, I don't think has changed. Okay. Um, I don't have much of orientation about his, you know, kind of political things and things of that kind, but you're right.
Sure.
You know, initially we worked together in 3 films, and surprisingly, we have not worked in any film together for 35 years. That's a different
Wow.
thing. Okay, but I've kind of reasonably known him. But he is a very rational person. In fact, I think he's the diametric opposite of spirituality from that point of view. But
True.
if even from the rational point of view, talks about humanism, you know, from that, you know, kind of thing. He has got a humanism philosophy which he associates with rationality, and he talks about. So I would say these two people are therefore two different kind of things. You can look at Rajni sir from the traditional spiritual point of view, and he takes that pathway and he goes very deep into that. Kamala Hassan sir wants, and I think, you know, likes to be different. Therefore, in that seeking to be different, he comes through with ideologies and mix of ideologies. I'm not saying mix up of ideologies, okay, mix of
Understood.
ideologies and perspectives. So that's the way I look at them. And I would also confess and say, in the initial 3 films that I did with Kamal sir, I mean, I respect him tremendously and appreciate that he gave me those opportunities. in the two films, Satya and Sura Samharam. Um, Fabulous roles, my amazing roles of of my career. Both of them were. So talent and acknowledgement and giving a breakthrough opportunity, I salute him for that. Rajini sir, for being a man of the heart with such human sensitivity and having been that consistent, normal human being, deep friend with me. Thanks for that.
Wonderful. Um, I'm going to deep dive into what we typically call as rapid fire. Um,
Okay.
and we are okay to go a little longer than typically how we would do our podcast. So take your time. But the first question that I have is a very interesting one, and we've spoken about this as well. Do you have mentors? And do you have something to say about what you have learned from mentors or teachers in your life?
Oh yeah, what a good question. And I'm just moving my head. You can see a series of teachers' photographs right on my behind.
Yes.
Some of them
Yes.
direct, and some of them, not so direct, but I would say induced kind of thing. Um, right from my primary school days, I think teachers have been huge mentors to me. My Lakshmi teacher from school, and then Professor K.K. Mehta as I went in, Dr. Rajadaksha, my second boss, Pulin, who for my lifetime would be always my Bhishma Pita, he's out there. My complete exposure to sensitivity training and the human behavior and the deeper understanding about the journey of life that comes from Pulin touching my, kind of forehead and blessing me. So that's there. And of course, Swami Suddhananda, my spiritual, kind of mentor, and who from 1994-95 has been an amazing kind of teacher. And the other unstated teachers, whether it's Osho or Nisargadatta Maharaj, whom I respect tremendously, or Ramana Maharishi. So, there's a lot of, taking in that has come from them. And I completely, kind of respect that. But I think the real question is, do you live spiritually? I think that's always the question. And I think people may have individual definition of, to me, spirituality is not a practice, though I have no difficulties of accepting spirituality in terms of practice. I think meditation is a living process of life. And there's a beautiful, statement in the book Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, where the author talks about the word Zen. How did it emerge? And he's comparing the mind of the Japanese in terms of their quality orientation and the
Hmm.
influence of Zen Buddhism leading to that. And then he comes with something very revealing, and that is the word Zen comes from the Indian word dhyan, which is
Oh,
attention, deep focus, and into focusing into one thing very, very deeply, very, very intimately, very, very focusedly, with no deterrent of any kind, and therefore be able to do that effortlessly. And he says that creates quality of mind, quality of presence, and that becomes the quality of anything that you live and do. All right, such a beautiful thing. Therefore, I'm saying the influence of teachers on spirituality has been quite varied in terms of clarities, in terms of impacting messages, in terms of breakthrough practices, whatever, all those. But you need to live. What's your living phenomena of being spiritual? I think that's the real question.
sure. Wonderful. And I think that's a profound one. I don't think my answer would be very similar to that of yours. I think that's why spirituality is different for every individual. What's that one book you believe that every aspiring leader should read?
Difficult question, because you can see the number of books behind. And I would not as very difficult, honestly, because there are these favorites. I would not just talk about one, I'll talk about two. Though, I have read them 15, 20 years back, and I continue to flip through them, even though I read many other books. One is in terms of a common, kind of an understanding, a basic understanding, an enhanced appreciation about leadership and, kind of organizations, is Jim Collins' From Good to Great. Phenomenal. And also because it's a research based book. It's not a
Hmm.
book just of concepts and theories. They did deep dive work for 5 years, picked up all those organizations, put out the criteria of greatness, put those standards and measured against those greatness criteria, and then they came up with those 9 organizations and said these are great organizations. And I think the essence of the book Good to Great is phenomenal. And a couple of them that I'll talk about. One of them is this definition of level 5 leadership. I think every
Hmm.
person aspiring to be a leader must read this part.
Sure.
Outstanding, those 5 6 qualities that they have talked about, and I'll just mention that one quality. A great leader, a level 5 leader, he looks at the mirror when things go wrong, and he looks out of the window when things go right, to appreciate somebody saying you have done it. But when things go wrong, he asks, what is it that I could have done better? Look into the mirror
Wow.
when things go wrong, look out of the window when things go right. Fabulous. Okay, one part of that. So you can imagine. The second thing about that is the consistent realization that values values make a bigger difference and the best of strategies in organization. That's a
Hmm.
revelation. Okay, the great organizations had their lowest common denominator of values in place. They didn't talk about fancy ideas and jargons of strategy and breakthrough and tactics and management practices. All of the other things happen, but the core foundation were principles and values which build that organization's culture. These two important takeaways from that book. The other book, in terms of personal, I can say personal deep reflection a leader should have, and therefore leadership from a perspective of, from sensitivity and from the heart to becoming a leader, I would say recommend Maverick
Hmm.
by Ricardo Semler. Outstanding book. And you know the story, Ricardo was not interested in taking over the similar, business empire from his father. He, in fact, did law. He never came to the factories or to the corporate offices. So one day his dad called him up and said, called him, pulled him over to the office and said, "What's wrong with you? This complete empire that I've built, all this is meant for whom? What is this disinterest that you have in the business and industry?" And Semler came with a fantastic response. He said, "Dad," and they could see the entry gate of the factories. He said, "You can see the factory entry gates." So Dad says, "Yes." He said, "Dad, one thing about you and your management I don't ever understand. The workers come into your factories, you give them $1 million CNC machines and equipments to run your plant, to do your manufacturing, to make your production, to make your business. And when they go through the gate out after the shift, your security people check them as if them some kind of suspects. What kind of value systems do you have? Do you ever treat people as human beings, whatever their levels are? I'm not saying in exactly the same way. The question that he posed was, can there be humanness in business?
True.
I think Dad got so strongly hit by these principles, he handed over the Semler Corporation. Rest is history. Semler became a picnic spot where, in truckloads, busloads, people would go to see the working of an open organization. So I would say, read Maverick by Ricardo Semler.
Wonderful. My dear friends, Harini, Srinivasan, and Milind would be very happy with this uh, book recommendation that you made on Maverick because they practice this as part of their Semco style of leadership. And talking of values, you brought in a very interesting point, and I think that's one thing. If I were to really look at startups today, it's all about ideas. It's all about go-to-market strategies. It's all about bringing more revenues, profitability, um, yet, only purpose driven organizations survive and go long. There is also a argument, there is also a perspective that a lot of people say that our values eroding as times
Mhm.
pass.
Yeah.
And do you see that happening? Like, do you see value erosion, which is causing a lot of these toxic work cultures? And what would typically be the after effects of that?
At one level, I see this as inevitable. and it's not positive, but what's happening is inevitable. It will have its natural, what I call as consequences and disasters, and therefore a learning will come out of that, and the cycle will start differently. So that's okay. Uh, because I'm a firm believer in what I call as the principle of duality co-holding
Mm. Mm.
all the time, energy and matter, the female species and the male species, day and night, sleep in the
Mm.
night, strive during the day. The duality
True.
principle has to exist. So if you're talking about artificial intelligence, there has got to be a natural stupidity that has got to come along with that. And that will be part of, natural disasters and stupidity will become an integral part of life. But let me
Sure.
address that question. See, what's happening is in the objective reality, everything is measured by three factors: time,
Mm.
quantity, and quality. And in the
Mm.
last few hundred years, and let's say in the last 400 years, the significant movement has been towards and overtaking has been by the objective reality, the scientific
Mm.
development, as we call that. Industrial revolution, information revolution, now intelligence revolution, which is about these three factors. So when you can do things faster, you're supposed to be much better off. You can do
Mm.
much, 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 much more thousands of times, you're better off. Your
Mm.
quality is better and better and better, you're better off. So
Mm.
speed, more, and kind of exclusivity become the differentiating factors. It's
Sure.
okay provided they are combined with deep sensitivity and the truth of being human. But the moment that disconnect happens, speed becomes haste, more becomes greed, and exclusivity becomes arrogance of power. The mix
Yeah.
of these three together, from superpowers politically to corporate enterprises, is disastrous, blinding power rage, somehow,
Mm.
anyhow mindset. And that's not healthy at all. So I think this
True.
is the warning call, I would say. And unfortunately, this avasaram adhigam anavam, haste,
Mm.
greed, and arrogance are
Mm.
almost becoming part of the living culture. So even youngsters and even children, without knowing that they are these qualities, are picking up as living styles. And I'm saying that's where the bugle of danger has got to be kind of really sounded. We need to do
Mm.
something about it, Gopal, all of us, not you or me, all of us. I think
All of us.
to begin with this awareness of this clarity and what we need to do. That's my submission to you. Yeah.
Sure. Sure. Um, who's one leader, past or present, you look up to the most?
Um, okay, so the moment we use the term leader, the first thing that happens to us is a lot of times political leaders come to our mind. Yeah, it's very interesting. In Indian industries, if you go into the organization, especially to the shop floor, and you ask them who is the greatest leader of your life, they will normally tell you a union leader and never the MD of the company. So that's a forewarning that I'm giving. Okay, so
True
let's
that.
come to me. Political leadership and global leadership has always been a very big influence right from childhood. I was very
Sure.
fascinated by JFK and things of that kind. So to me, two people stand out in my mind. One is in terms of sheer kind of quality of whosoever that he was. Kamaraj as a political leader,
Mm.
simplicity with deep dedication to society, to me as
Mm.
a great leader from a political point of view. From a principle point of view, Mandela to me is an unmatched kind of a leader. When the whole population said, let's settle the scores with the whites, he said,
Mm.
then what's the difference between them and us?
Mm.
Amazing kind of that part of it. In terms of a thought leader, I have a great respect for Osho in terms
Mm.
of his kind of points of view about life. In terms of business leaders, JRD was one of my big favorites.
Mm.
Maybe part of the reason was that my dad was in Air India, and that was part of the kind of JRD, the
Correct.
chairman. But no, as a human being, the stories about him, and also the first person who flew the plane, the aircraft from Karachi to India. Bombay and things of that kind. Beyond all that, that humble human being, and the
True.
stories about him. As an artist at the age of 13, 14, I did a beautiful sketch of GRD, and sent it across to Air India for, kind of publishing. They acknowledged that, but they published my dad's sketch, which I had done. So he was a hero for me. If you ask me currently in terms of political leadership, I would say I have a great admiration for Modi. I'm not talking about the political part of it, but as a sheer leadership in terms of many leadership qualities and traits. And I would say two people in my mind, in terms of quality of leadership, unfortunately, the late, because 2 years back he passed away, B. Ramaswamy, BR, who was the MD of Sonata Software. I'm
Sure.
talking about people I have worked with. And in terms of the
Sure.
contemporary ones, I would say the founder MD of Kalishwari Refineries, who,
Hmm.
from a humble beginning of being a shop assistant with a monthly salary of 10 rupees, today runs or manages or heads a business of 7,000 crores. And I'm writing his biography, by the way. Okay. Tremendously,
Wonderful.
impacting kind of person. And the third one, I would say, my friend, but all the same, somebody that I admire, Arun Jain, formerly the founder of Polaris, now of the Intellect
Hmm.
Design. Arun is a very rare combination of business enterprise with very deep commitment to social good, and not just thinking and talking about it, but creating institutions and spending phenomenal amount of time, energy, manpower, and dedication to create a combination of social institutions which will have the reach of the government, yet the efficacy of the corporate world. So I admire Arun quite a bit. So I'm talking about three people that I know personally. I mean, I can talk about others,
Sure.
but I'll use it. These three people I'll
Sure.
talk about. Yeah.
Sure. I know if we were to both sit and talk, we can talk for hours. I know at the end of the day, audience would have their daily routine to take care of. So, do you have any parting thoughts, Raja sir, for the audience?
Um, yeah, there is something that I really want to highlight, and I want, if possible, for people to literally check it out in their organizations. I think it's time to very clearly recognize and declare these entities as two different entities, which is being a manager and being a leader are completely two different things.
True.
And the beauties of integrating and holding them in balance, and not romantically look at leadership as an idea and not really invest into that, and land up investing into the competencies building and the systems building and the technology building of the managership. I'm not being dismissive, but I'm saying recognize at the end of it that a managership is a Swiggy boy delivery syndrome. Okay, nothing wrong
Hmm.
about Swiggy boys, but being the glorious of managers is to be a glorified Swiggy boy. I think organizations need to recognize that as people grow in the positions of influencing people, leadership is far more important. Leadership needs to be focused because leadership lays down what Jim Collins called as the foundations and the pathway of culture, the values of the organization. I would say focus, dedicate, continue to hold leadership as vital as an ingredient as managership of competencies and systems. You'll make a big difference to organizations.
Incredible. With that, thank you very much, Raja sir, for joining us. I'm sure there are a lot of questions and comments that would come at the end of this. I will share all of those to you personally on WhatsApp. But to my audience who joined me today and to Raja sir, I want to extend my deepest thanks for sharing his incredible journey and insights with us. Raja sir, your stories of transformation and leadership have not only inspired but also given practical wisdom to apply in our own lives. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in and engaging with us. Do not forget to follow or subscribe to my channel for more inspiring sessions like this. Until next time, keep striving for excellence and remember, every career shift is a step towards your ultimate goals. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you so much, Gopal, and thank you all the
Thank you.
members of the audience.
Thank you so much.